Hello and welcome back to yet another video on the Alejandro Hernandez podcast. These are going to be my official week 2 picks, and it was a very entertaining week 1. They had a ton of interesting games, a lot of high scoring games, a lot of defensive games filled with comebacks. The Bills come back over the Ravens, the Vikings come back over the Chicago Bears. So it was a very entertaining week of football. And quickly before I get into my week 2 picks, let's just quickly summarize how I did in week 1 when it came to straight up and against the spread. Straight up, went 10-6. I'm looking to improve on that mark. I want to be at 75%, which would be 12-4 each week in terms of predicting straight up winners. I'd hope to get 12 out of 16 right. And then for against the spread, I went 6-10. I definitely want to improve on that. I'd hope to be over 500 against the spread this season, and let's hope that that's the case. But I also can't be too hard on myself for week 1 because week 1 is a bunch of unexpected outcomes. We're not really sure what we're going to get from each team. So I just take week one with a grain of salt, kind of a feel out week, and now we get an idea now of what these teams really look like out the gate, and we'll go from there. So starting out with tonight's Thursday night football game, we have the Washington Commanders against the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to have the Packers winning this game and covering the spread. I believe the biggest matchup to look out for in this game is Josh Jacobs versus the Commanders' rush defense. And in week 1, the Commanders' rush defense looked spectacular against the Giants, but then again, it's the measly Giants. They struggled to run block all game long. John Michael Schmitz really struggled. Greg Van Roten really struggled. But what I'm going to be keeping an eye out for this game is going to be how Josh Jacobs fares against the Commanders, and if the Packers really feed Josh Jacobs early and often. They did not do that against the Lions. I believe Jacobs only had 8 yards rushing heading into the second half, but then in the second half, they started giving him the football more, and that drained the clock, and they were able to walk out with a dominant win. But for Green Bay, I believe the key in this game is to get Josh Jacobs going on the ground game, control time of possession, keep Jaden Daniels off the field on the sideline. If the Packers can do that effectively, and if Jordan Love does not turn the football over, which I believe he won't, well, I'm hoping he won't, then the Packers should win this game. And it's going to be a shootout. I believe Jaden Daniels, when he does get the ball, he's going to score some points. And I believe it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game, kind of back and forth, but I believe Green Bay will eventually pull away in the second half. They could create a turnover or two on defense. They're a very opportunistic defense. I love their pass rush with Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary. They looked very, very good in week 1, and I believe they're going to get after Jaden Daniels in this game. And with all that being said, give me Green Bay to win the game and to cover the spread, which is set at -3.5. I believe it's still going to be a one-possession game, but Green Bay will still win and cover this number. So now let's move on to the 1 p.m. slate. It's going to be my first game that I'm going to cover is the Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens. Give me the Ravens to win, but the Browns to cover the spread. Usually when it's AFC North teams, I tend to take the underdog to cover the spread because underdogs historically do really good against the spread in AFC North matchups, and this number is just huge. It's 12.5 and in favor of Baltimore. And yes, I know that they're going to be fired up and want to come out and really step their foot forward and probably just kill the Browns in the first half. But I believe the Browns are capable of hanging around this game because I believe their defense is very underrated. I believe they're in the top half of the NFL in terms of defensive talent. With Carson Sweninger, they have Myles Garrett, Mason Graham. Myles Garrett definitely made his presence felt in week 1 against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. He had back-to-back sacks in that game. They have Mason Graham on their defensive line. In their secondary, they have Denzel Ward. They have a lot of talented players on that defense that really don't get talked about enough because the Browns just suck in general. But in terms of defensive talent, the Browns are underrated, and I believe that their defense is good enough to keep them in this game. And Joe Flacco is good enough to sling it all around the football field that they'll move the ball in this Ravens defense the same way. Not the same way that Josh Allen did, but they'll definitely have success moving the football down the field through the air. So I love the Browns to cover the spread at plus 12.5. I believe it'll be kind of close. The Ravens will win this game probably by a touchdown or 10 points, but I believe 12 is too big of a number. So give me the Browns to cover and the Ravens to win. Now let's move on to Jaguars versus Bengals. I'm going to have the Bengals winning this at home, and I'm actually going to have the Jaguars covering the spread. I'm going to be taking more plus spreads in this week in week 2. So that means that teams that are not favored to win, but I will take them to cover the spread because I do believe there's going to be a lot of close games this weekend. And like there was last week, and there was a ton of close games last week, and I believe it's going to be the same this week. And mix in a couple blowouts too, but for the most part, I believe when it comes to these shorter spreads, when it's plus 3.5 or -3.5, I'm likely going to lean plus 3.5 because I believe these games will be decided by field goals. And in this particular case, I believe this game is going to end in an Eddie McPherson walk-off field goal. And I believe it's because both offenses are very, very high powered. You have the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Etienne finally broke out again in week one, had over 140 rushing yards. And I believe the Jaguars will try and involve Travis Hunter more on the offensive side of the ball. They still have Brenton Strange at tight end, who people forget about. They also have Diami Brown, who's their wide receiver 3. So this Jaguars team has offensive weapons, and Liam Cohen really was able to maximize all of the weapons on the offense in week one, which I was really encouraged to see. And I believe he's going to do the same on this Bengals defense. And then when you go on the Bengals side of the ball, they had a rough week one, but I believe they're facing a very light defense in Jacksonville that can be exploited in the secondary. I believe the secondary is what's Jacksonville's biggest weakness. They can generate a pass rush with Trayvon Walker and with Josh Hines Allen, but I believe, the pass rush for both teams is very good. But other than that, these defenses are very poor on the back end, and I believe both quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, will exploit these weaknesses on the back end of their defense. So I expect big games from Jamar Chase, from T. Higgins, and from Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter and Diami Brown. So I believe the scoreline, if I had to predict it, would probably say 27-24 Bengals, ending it on a walk-off field goal in favor of Cincinnati, and I believe they will improve to 2-0. But I also have the Jaguars covering the spread, which is at plus 3.5. So give me Bengals money line and Jaguar spread. Now let's move on to the next game, which is going to be the Tennessee Titans versus the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to favor the Rams in this matchup to win the game and cover the spread, which is set at -5.5. The Titans, although they performed well on defense, that was because they forced a lot of turnovers on Denver. I don't believe Matthew Stafford is going to be a turnover machine the same way that Bo Nix was. So I expect Stafford to be a game manager the same way he was against Houston. I expect him to take care of the football. I believe they're going to lean on Kyren Williams this game. And I expect another big game from Puka Nacua. And overall, I just expect the Rams to be in complete control of this game, not have any turnovers, control the clock, and their defensive line is going to get after Cam Ward, probably force some turnovers, and play well on defense. So give me the Rams to cover and win this game. Probably low scoring. I believe the Titans won't score many points in this game, but the Rams also won't put up 30. It'll probably be, if I had to guess, 24-10 would be my scoreline prediction for this game. The Rams handle the Titans on the road. And for the next game, it's going to be the New England Patriots versus the Miami Dolphins. Give me the New England Patriots straight up to win this game. And likewise to last week, it was even odds for money line between the Indianapolis Colts and the Miami Dolphins, and the Colts blew them out. And I took Miami because Tua was undefeated in week one. I guess that was a flawed perspective because I didn't take into account that Tua played awful, and this Dolphins team was trending down in the offseason. They have controversy with Tyreek Hill. And especially after week one, it looks like he's going to get traded at some point this season. And the Dolphins just looked like a mess on offense. So from what I saw from week one, I was more encouraged. Even though the Patriots lost, I was more encouraged with their performance, especially defensively, than I was with the Dolphins' week one performance. So for that reason, give me the Patriots to go on the road in Miami and win. I expect a breakout game here from TreVeyon Henderson. I believe he's going to finally break out in week two. And the Patriots should definitely elect to give him more touches. I believe it was like a 50-50 split between him and Ramondre Stevenson. I believe he's going to take the backfield for himself very, very soon. And that could happen this week if he makes the most of his opportunities, which I think he will. So give me the Patriots straight up to win this game. Drake May should outperform Tua in this game, should outplay him. And if he does, then the Patriots will win this game handedly. I also expect them to create some turnovers on defense the same way they did against the Raiders. They had an interception on Geno. I expect them to have probably an interception or two off Tua, and also generate a pass rush. So for that reason, I'm picking the Patriots to win this game straight up. Now for the next game, it's going to be the New York Giants against the Dallas Cowboys. And I lost hope very early on watching the Giants-Commanders game. It just wasn't... it was a hard watch for me, I'm not going to lie. But now here we are, going to Dallas in week two. Originally, before the season started, I was under the assumption that we were going to lose week one to Washington, then go on the road and beat the Cowboys. But after the way the Cowboys played against the Eagles and the way the Giants played against the Commanders, I can't look into the camera with a straight face and pick the Giants to win this game. I'm going to have to go with Dallas. And Dak Prescott has won his last 13, 1-3 games against the New York Giants. And he's 13-2, and those two losses both came in his rookie year. And ever since, he has not lost a single game again to the Giants, and I don't expect that to start now. Russ just did not look good, but I don't even blame it on Russ. I blame it on our offensive line. Our offensive line looked absolutely awful, and it would be an absolute travesty and a mistake to throw Jackson Dart in there, especially this early on. I really hope they don't, but if it really depends on how bad we play. and how desperate Brian Dable is, and how much pressure he's under to get this turned around quickly. And when we're talking about the actual matchups, Dallas's offensive line, I believe, matches up well against our defensive line. They looked very good against Philadelphia. They were able to protect Dak Prescott pretty well. And if Dak is protected in this game, he's going to shred us. Simple as that. He's going to shred us. CeeDee Lamb had a big week one, even with the drops. Just imagine now when he's staring down Paulson Adebo, he's probably going to think that's barbecue chicken, and he should, because Paulson Adebo did not look good week one. He got torched in a double move by Terry McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels just barely overthrew him. If he hit him in stride, it's a 75-yard touchdown for Terry McLaurin, and he's hitting his head on the goalpost. So I believe CeeDee Lamb is going to have a big game this week, and expect probably a deep shot or two to George Pickens that'll probably go through, because Cordell Flott is also not cutting it at boundary corner. So yeah, I like the Cowboys in this matchup. Offensively, I think they're going to put up a lot of points in our defense. And if the Cowboys defense can generate a turnover or two on the Giants, then this is going to get ugly quick. So give me Dallas to win this game and cover. I have no hope for the Giants to compete in this game after what I saw in week one. So yeah, let's just move on. Enough Giants talk, because that week one performance really drained me as a Giants fan. But anyways, let's move on to Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions. I'm going to have the Lions bouncing back in a big way. I have them winning this game and covering the spread, which is set at -5.5. And I think this line is respecting the Bears a little bit too much. Yes, they did have a lead on Minnesota, but that was also just due to J.J. McCarthy not playing good. I believe Jared Goff and this Lions offense is going to come out firing on all cylinders out the gate in this game. Give me the Lions to probably score 30-plus points in this game. I expect big games from pretty much their entire offensive skill position set, which is Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jameson Williams, along with Sam Laporta. I expect Jared Goff to just be slinging the rock all over the field. And the Lions offense is going to be rolling in this game, in my opinion. Give me the Lions to win convincingly by blowout, in my opinion. I believe this is going to be a blowout. I'm predicting it, that the Lions are going to blow out the Bears in week 2 and simply embarrass Ben Johnson. And hopefully Caleb Williams can hold up on his end on the offensive side of the ball, but this Detroit Lions pass rush is really good. They weren't really able to affect Green Bay in week 1, but it was just overall not a good performance. I believe they are going to bounce back. They need to bounce back for their own dignity, because they did get their ass kicked in week 1 by the Packers. But I expect them to bounce back in this game, and I am predicting a blowout for the Detroit Lions, so give me them to win and cover the spread, which is set at -5.5. Now for the next game, let's talk 49ers versus Saints. And in this game, it was just revealed this morning that Brock Purdy is going to be out for at least 2 to 5 weeks. So now Mac Jones is the starter. And I believe that the Niners are still going to win this game. I'm going to take them to cover the spread, and I believe they're going to lean on their defense heavily in this game. They looked really good against Seattle in week 1, and I expect them to look really good once again against the Saints in week 2. So I believe the Niners defense is going to have to carry them in this stretch where they're without George Kittle and without Brock Purdy, and I expect them to lean on Christian McCaffrey in the defense, and I believe those two things are good enough to win them this game. So give me the Niners to beat the Saints in New Orleans and cover the spread, which is set at -3.5. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Seattle Seahawks versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and in week 1, I was really disappointed with Sam Darnold, man. I believe the whole Seahawks team showed up for him, and he didn't show up to play. And there were so many opportunities for the Seahawks to capitalize and take this game from the Niners. They could have very easily won this game. Brock Purdy had 2 interceptions. Apart from the Niners' opening drive touchdown, they really could not generate anything on offense. Yet the Seahawks could just never take advantage of themselves. And I blame that on Sam Darnold. However, in this matchup, I am going to take the Seahawks to upset the Pittsburgh Steelers. And although Rodgers looked great in week 1, I don't think that's sustainable. And I think they're going to run into a great defense, which is the Seahawks defense. And Rodgers is going to struggle in this game, in my opinion, because the Seahawks can generate a pass rush, which the Jets did do. They had 4 sacks on Rodgers, but I believe it's going to be consistent pressure from the Seattle defense. DeMarcus Lawrence, Leonard Williams, they have some players on that defensive line. They're going to get after Rodgers. I believe Mike McDonald's an aggressive defensive coordinator. He's going to look to blitz Aaron Rodgers, and if they hit him early and often, then he's probably going to be shaky the rest of the game. And I also think that the Seahawks secondary is good enough to contain the Pittsburgh playmakers, which are DK Metcalf, Jonnu Smith, and Calvin Austin. I would take the Seahawks secondary players over the Pittsburgh offensive skill position players. And then when you shift over to the other side of the ball, I expect the Seahawks to run the ball effectively in this game. And that's with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I expect the bounce-back performance from Kenneth Walker, who had a poor week 1. And I believe they're going to lead on both those running backs to lead them to victory in this game. And once again, like I had stated my week one pick, Sam Darnold just do not turn the ball over. If he doesn't turn the ball over in the red zone, it was like a weird fumble where he was gonna throw the football and then the football hit the back of his offensive lineman and he fumbled. And I just looked at it and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like the Seahawks were about to go win the game and then Sam Darnold pulls that. So Sam Darnold, just take care of the football, lean on your running game. If the Seahawks can get their running game going and their defense can play a great game, then I expect them to win this game. So give me the Seahawks as underdogs to take this one in week 2 against the Steelers on the road. Now another matchup on the 1 p.m. slate. It's going to be the New York Jets versus the Buffalo Bills. Give me the Bills to win this game, but the Jets to cover the spread. I think that the Bills are riding a high right now off that week 1 comeback, and they're going to come back down to earth. They're once again playing a great rushing attack, and they really suffered against that in week 1 against the Ravens with Derrick Henry running wild. I expect the Jets to once again commit to the running game the way they did against Pittsburgh. And I believe they'll lean on that in this game with Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Justin Fields. They mightily struggled against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and I believe the combo of Justin Fields and Breece Hall can have success against this defense. So I do believe it's going to be an offensive shootout again between the Jets and the Bills, but still give me the Bills because I love Josh Allen. I think he's going to win this game again for the Bills. And also, I just believe that the Bills are just going to be in control of this game for the most part. The Jets will score some points, but I believe the Bills will be in command of this game. But it'll still be pretty close towards the end. So give me the Bills to win the game, but the Jets to cover the spread, which is at +6.5. Another reason why I like the Jets at home against the Bills is because historically the past 3 seasons that the Bills have played the Jets, the Bills won the matchup last year when Rodgers was the quarterback, but the Bills only won by 3 points, and in the previous 2 seasons before that, the Jets actually won at home against the Bills. So that's why I like the Jets to cover the spread. I still think the Bills will pull it out late, but I do like the Jets to cover. So now let's move on to the 405 and 425 slate. And the first game is going to be the Arizona Cardinals versus the Carolina Panthers. And I'm going to have the Cardinals winning and covering this spread. And it's kind of the same logic as last week. The Panthers look like among the worst teams in the league. And I just think the Cardinals are good enough to get the job done, especially since now they're at home. The game against the Saints last week did come down at the wire, and the Saints had a chance to tie it. But I just think the Cardinals are just like better than the Panthers, and the Cardinals' strengths match up against the Panthers' weaknesses. And the Cardinals are great at running the football with James Conner and Trey Benson. The Panthers could not stop the run against Jacksonville in week 1, and it's that reoccurring issue where they just cannot stop the run. And I believe the Cardinals can exploit that. And I believe the Cardinals also have the weapons in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. As long as Kyler Murray can take care of the football. And he took 5 sacks in week 1, which was kind of surprising because I didn't believe the Saints had that good of a pass rush. But I just believe that's on Kyler to release the ball sooner. So if he does that more effectively in week 2, which I believe he will, then the Cardinals should cruise to victory. And it sucks because Bryce Young, there was some hope given how he finished the season last year that he was going to perform this year, but he just looked awful again in week 1. So for that reason, I just can't take the Panthers confidently in this week to even cover the spread against the Cardinals because of how awful Bryce looked. And a matchup to look out for in this game is going to be Panthers wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan against Cardinals cornerback Will Johnson. That was a matchup that, Will Johnson in week 1 performed outstanding. He had an interception called back, but he was just locked down the entire game. So I do expect him to shadow Tet McMillan in this game. It's going to be rookie on rookie, and 2 of the best rookies in the class are going to battle head-to-head, so I'd look out for that matchup and see who wins it. It's going to be an entertaining battle, but give me the Cardinals to win and cover the spread, which is set at -6.5 at home. Now, for the next game, it's going to be the Indianapolis Colts against the Denver Broncos. Give me the Broncos to win this game. Again, it feels kind of weird because in week 1, Vegas kind of just tricked me. I looked at the line, it was Colts Dolphins, and I was like, shouldn't the Dolphins just be clear favorites to win this game? Like, why aren't they? Like, what am I missing? And what I was missing was that it was a complete opposite of what I thought was going to happen. I thought Daniel Jones would play bad, and I thought Tua would play good, and it was the complete opposite. Daniel Jones played awesome, and Tua played bad. So now I look at this matchup, and again, it's a -1.5 spread. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, well, Denver's a significantly better team, right? But with all that being said, I still am going to roll with the Broncos because they were one of my favorite teams in the preseason. And in the offseason in general, I love the Broncos offseason. I love what they did in acquiring weapons for Bo Nix and for the additions they made on the defensive side of the ball. The defense looked up to par. The offense did not, and that was because Bo Nix made too many mistakes. And the Colts are an opportunistic defense, so that could pose trouble if Bo Nix still has this turnover issue. The Colts will take advantage of that. So that's something I am going to look out for, but I am going to trust that Denver's defense is going to play well enough to win them this football game. And I don't think Daniel Jones is up to match this Denver defense. I don't think he's good enough to beat this Denver defense. And as long as Bo Nix doesn't throw the game away, the Broncos should win this game. So give me the Broncos to win and cover that -1.5. Now let's move on to Chiefs Eagles, which is probably going to be the game of the week. And I think this game is going to be, well, most people are saying that the Eagles are just going to win. I don't think it's that simple. I think this could be, although the Eagles aren't big favorites, this could be a potential trap game for the Eagles because people are underestimating the Chiefs because of how the Chiefs played in week 1. And when the Chiefs are doubted, they usually tend to prove people wrong. And although I'm usually the guy who picks the Chiefs in this game, I just can't do it because I believe Philadelphia is just too big of a mismatch for them. And Philadelphia, as a football team, in terms of a roster and what they're good at, reminds me a lot of what the Chargers are good at. I believe the Eagles are just better at what they do than what the Chargers are what they do. And I love Jalen Hurts. I love their running game. But what the Chiefs do is they sell out to stop the run, which I believe Steve Spagnuolo did in the Super Bowl. He sold out to stop Saquon, and in week 1 he sold out to stop Amarian Hampton in that Chargers running game. And the result of that was Justin Herbert lighting them up and Jalen Hurts lighting them up. And I believe it's going to be the same result this week. I expect a big week from A.J. Brown. I expect a big week from Devonta Smith. And I believe this Eagles passing game is going to be under a microscope this week. And hopefully Jalen Hurts can execute. I believe he can. And if he does, then the Eagles will win this game, no matter how good Patrick Mahomes plays on the other side of the ball, because he's without his top 2 wide receivers. He looked great in week 1, but he just didn't get enough help, and his defense let him down. And I believe that's going to be the same case in this game. The Chiefs secondary looked pretty bad in week 1 against the Chargers and looked bad in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. So that's still a reoccurring issue, and I believe it's going to be an issue that's going to rise again in this game. And I believe the Eagles are going to take full advantage of that. So give me the Eagles to win this game. They are favored by -1.5. I believe they will cover that spread. I'm not expecting a blowout. I believe the Chiefs will hang around in this game the same way they hung around in the Chargers game. But I expect a pretty similar game script from the Chargers Chiefs game in this game as well. So give me the Eagles to beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Now, for Sunday Night Football, Falcons versus Vikings. Give me the Vikings to win and cover the -3.5. I was a little bit doubtful in week 1 of how J.J. McCarthy would play, and that doubt was proved correctly for the first 3 quarters, and then he turned into a completely different quarterback in the 4th. So J.J. McCarthy definitely earned my respect in this game, and I believe that gives me confidence to pick the Vikings in this matchup at home against the Falcons. I love the way Kevin O'Connell coached this game. He really let J.J. McCarthy ease into it. J.J. McCarthy, after throwing the pick 6, did not panic. And I think he's going to be more poised this week. And now that he got his feet wet, since he hadn't played competitive football in a very long time because of the injury he suffered. But now he's back. And he looked good in the 4th quarter. And I expect him to carry that momentum into this week. So give me the Vikings to win and cover the spread. I expect a big game from Justin Jefferson. And on the Falcons side of the ball, Michael Penix, I expect him to play well. But Brian Flores is a great defensive coordinator. I believe he's going to scheme up a bunch of blitzes on Michael Penix. And we're going to see how he handles it. And I believe he will handle it well. He won't panic. He won't have a horrible game. This game will be kind of close in my opinion. I believe it's going to be I had the Falcons covering the spread. My bad. I have the Vikings winning the game and the Falcons covering the spread. I do believe the Falcons are going to hang around in this game. And I have the Vikings actually winning by a field goal. So if I had to predict the scoreline, I'd say 24-21 would be my scoreline prediction for this game. I believe the Vikings will win, but the Falcons do cover the +3.5 because I have faith in Michael Penix to perform well. And let's hope that he has Drake London healthy. Bijan Robinson's obviously one of the best backs, if not the best back in football. And then Kyle Pitts also looked pretty good in week 1. So give me the Falcons to hang around in this game, cover the spread, which is at +3.5, and the Vikings to win. And then now let's move on to Monday Night Football. We got Buccaneers versus Texans. Give me the Bucs to win this game straight up as an underdog. And I was probably messed up for not picking them last week against the Falcons. I had doubt, and that doubt was almost proven right because the Falcons were really close to winning that game, but Baker Mayfield turned into Baker freaking Mayfield. And I should have had more faith in him week 1. Even without Tristan Wirfs, even without Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield still got the job done in the 4th quarter with that beautiful throw to Emeka Egbuka on the post. And I was so happy to see Emeka Egbuka's week 1 breakout, and I expect him to carry that momentum into week 2. And I'm also very concerned about what's going on in Houston right now with that poor offensive line play. They just looked awful on offense, and we really haven't seen CJ Stroud perform at his best in a very long time. It's been probably since back, well, I know he performed well in the playoff game against the Chargers, but dating back to good regular season play, we're looking back at like week 1 of last season. And if we just probably just take out the first 2 weeks of the season in 2024, and we go from week 3 of 2024 to now, he's in the regular season, he's thrown 17 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. I believe that's a cause for concern, and this Texans offense really is not clicking. So I expect the Bucs to take advantage of that. I trust Baker right now more than I trust CJ Stroud. So give me the Bucs to win this game as a 2.5 point underdog. And now let's move on to the final game of the weekend. We have the Raiders facing against the Chargers. Give me the Chargers to win and cover the spread. I was off in my prediction that pretty for both of these teams, I had the Raiders and Chargers losing in week 1. They both wind up winning. And in this matchup, I favor the Chargers because I believe they're just better in the trenches. They're better on their offensive line. They're better in the run game. Ashton Jeanty only ran for 19 carries, 38 yards, so only 2.0 yards per carry was what Ashton Jeanty ran for in week 1. I don't think that's going to slide in this game against the Chargers. And I believe the Chargers are going to shut Ashton Jeanty down. Probably, I wouldn't say the same yards per carry. I believe Jeanty will have a little bit more success, but I do believe that the Chargers will have more success on offense than the Raiders will on offense. I believe the Chargers defense is more capable of slowing down Geno Smith than the Raiders defense is capable of slowing down Justin Herbert. So for that reason, give me the Chargers to win this game convincingly, probably by a touchdown. If I had to predict the scoreline, I'd say 24-17. And that is going to be it for this video. And I will see you guys next time when I release my video on the top 10 teams in the NFL after week 2. But until then, I will see you guys next time.